Today we're talking about Man-Made Sunshine, which is a new project from Nothing But Thieves frontman Conor Mason. I can't tell you how excited I am to say that Conor is here now. Welcome, Conor. It kind of feels
Hello.
only right, given the subject of the EP, to ask how we're doing today.
No, thank you. That's kind. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really looking
Good.
forward to talking with you about the EP. I think it's a really beautiful, personal body of work.
Thank you.
So yeah, right. Let's get into it. Let's go into the first track.
Cool.
It's called "Brain in a Jar," and there's a lot in this track. I think
Yeah, there is a lot.
lyrics. The lyrics are sort of speaking of kind of isolation, being on a shelf, missing the sunlight. It feels quite dystopian and dark. There's sort of anxieties and self-doubt compared to being a brain in a jar. And there's also the theme of post-truth as well, in like I can sense the lie. I'm waking up for the very first time. It feels like a song that you had to write sort of all these feelings. You said in the first announcement that there's like in the process of writing that you felt like a lot of your life was kind of floating around.
Mm,
Um, so how was this song to write for you? Is that what it felt like?
yeah, it's complicated. I think I tend to write in bit parts with all of the songs. I think people have asked me in the past if I put this in specific order in terms of like writing stuff like that. And what I tend to do when I write is like I let something come to me and then I wait on it for however long it needs to wait. So it will come back and forth. A melody will come, a new lyric will come, a new shape, and then eventually I piece it together. Obviously, sometimes I spend longer chunks on it to finish it. But this one in particular, um, it really came quick, even though it's the most probably extensive and kind of intense, probably thematically and musically. For me, it was a kind of a snapshot in the middle of having some therapy where I just realized I was just like I realized I identify myself with all of these labels and these tropes and these things I have and these things I do. And I believe they're making me happy when I didn't know who I was at my core. And that, so Brain in the Jar for me was this conversation I was having with myself about the kind of blanket over my eyes, the wool over my eyes, kind of what's the word, illusion of the way I was living, the way I was supposedly happy, but I wasn't. I was in a very, very depressed place, a very unhappy place, and it was this just point of like, oh shit. I realized that there's this person or this kind of real core me underneath all of this stuff that I've put on top that I need to find, I need to dig to. And then it came hand in hand with this philosophical idea by Plato, which was that we're all just these brains stacked in a warehouse somewhere, and we're being fed our lives, and that's how we see it. So that's when I was just playing around with that theory as I was dealing with my own kind of ideas about illusion in my life or delusion in my life. And yeah, so it was weird. Like, I had the lyrics for quite a while. I just liked the theme of it all together. I really wanted to start the whole EP with "I'm waking up for the very first time." I just thought it was a really nice touch, and it was kind of true. I felt like the last couple of years of my life, I just kind of sprung into action and realized who I am and what really makes me me. And this song that's the essence of it at its core. It's discovering that it's that's what I'm saying. It was me wrestling with spirituality as well. It was me wrestling with that notion of the real true person underneath this is the real you, not the things you have or the things you do. It's who you are. So there was things like I miss my bike, I miss the tang of wine, but I can sense the lie. So it was supposed to be. It's half comedic to me as well, but it's like me having all of these things that I like to do and make me happy and give me endorphins and really, in actuality, I was just pasting over who I really am. I really want to find out who that was. But yeah, so that's the essence of that song.
Little Bird. This is a song
Yeah.
that seems to be about freedom, wanting freedom and getting out of a dark place. And it seems to be about sort of, forgive me for interpreting if it's wrong, please correct me, but
No,
it's
yeah.
sort of about making a personal effort with mental health. And I wanted to ask you about how that ties into the whole kind of ethos of man-made sunshine. That is it the feeling you kind of get at the culmination, or the sort of the effort you put into learning about yourself and the way you work mentally, giving you a sense of happiness, of sunshine? Is that what man-made sunshine's about?
Cool. So it's two questions there with like Little Bird and then Man Made Sunshine popped up. I'll answer Little Bird first because they're separate things. But Little Bird for me was the first absolute utterance of Man Made Sunshine. It was, I didn't even know it was a thing, and it happened by an accident. I was in LA recording Moral Panic with the band, and it was a weekend, and it was beautifully sunny outside, and had a barbecue, and it was like we had a little kind of deck party, and it was great. But I was so ill. I was so depressed. I was in such a bad place that like I'm typical in that response, that I was like, I don't want to mess with anyone else's day. So I was like, I'm going to go inside and just do my thing for half an hour, because it's hard to be in a headspace like that when everyone's having a good time. It weirdly disassociates you more. So like I went inside and I just sat down, and then Little Bird just came out. It was so magic and weird. It was like 20 minutes. I didn't even intend to write. It just came into my head, and I had fragments of the lyrics already in my phone, but I just wrote it lyrically and melodically and musically in like 20 minutes in this little Airbnb in LA. And I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck was that? That was the weirdest." It felt so different from anything I'd written before, and it was just basically like jazz chords and this like R&B flow, but it was the lyrics really. I was just like, "This is super personal." Um, and then I kind of left it for a while, and I feel like it was such a special song because I think there's this right. It's like parapsychic writing or something like that. It's like some sort of term for it. Paragognic, I don't know. Right, but I believed that my subconscious was writing that for me, because the lyrics were all about suppressing, suppressing, and suppressing and suppressing. It was just all about all of the stuff I knew that was floating around inside me that I didn't dive into till God, like a year and a half later when the pandemic hit, whenever it was. This this song had come out like out of me a year and a half before, almost as like some sort of warning, or like I don't know, like a cry for help in a sense. And I remember reading the lyrics like a year or so later and listening to what I'd made, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" Like I didn't even know I was in such a bad place then, as in I didn't know how much stuff I had stuffed down me until I'd kind of revisited a year and a half later. So it's a really special song for me. It's like it was a real calling card for like, you've got a lot to deal with here. And I really like the message of that song because it's just it's not that it's unhopeful, but there is an element of hopelessness. I was trying to keep it within the photograph of where it was written rather than where I'm at now, or where I was at, 2 years later when I'd pieced everything else together song wise. I wanted to keep it in that space because it tells that story. It was like the very last lyric of Little Bird is like, "Are you ever coming out?" Because at that point I was like, "You're fucked." I was like, "This isn't coming out." Like, how you're feeling. Basically, it's like it was inner child work. It was like suppressing that inner child crying for abundance of things, which has all been worked on. It's just I wanted to keep the song in that frame to highlight that people do this, I do this, and it's not healthy suppression at all. And the chorus is like this bird trying to release itself, trying to find its sky sort of thing. And I was scared of like he could do anything in a positive way, and I was also scared like he might do anything in a negative way. Where I was terrified of, if I released it, what was going to come out, if I was going to explode or implode or what. So it was this fear of knowing I had a lot to deal with and not dealing with it. and I don't recommend that to anyone. But I wanted to write about that feeling. Um, and then to answer your question about Man-Made Sunshine, yeah. So that came from a lyric that I hadn't quite got right. It was pissing it down, and I was here actually. I was here working on a song called "Man-Made Sunshine," which never became a song, and I was trying to mess around with the lyric of like in random sadness or in random downpour, like in random sadness, man made sunshine. And when it rains, man makes sunshine. And I was like, something's clunky about that. And I didn't really like it, didn't connect to it. It felt a little bit on the nose, but a little bit clunky. But then I was like, the second half, I was like, oh wow, that looks great. Man made sunshine. It fits everything so well with this whole thing. I was kind of going back to Brain in the Jar of like who I really am and what gives me my happiness, my endorphins, my dopamine. Is it all this stuff, this the stuff that I buy or the stuff that I have or the stuff that's sold to me, the synthetic stuff, is it man-made sunshine? Or can I create it? Can I make it? Can I man make it? Can I choose to be happy? Can I create it from my core, from who I am, rather than the stuff I own or the stuff I label myself as? Um, Even to the point of like, I'm a singer in a big rock band, I'm this, I'm that. It's like all the things I should be super proud of, which I am. I was at the O2 and stuff like that, and I was in such a bad place that it was sad. I got home the next day and I was like, fuck, I wish I could have enjoyed that more. As much as it was unreal, it was sad at the next. And I remember speaking to the boys, I was like, I just wish I was in a different headspace for that. But you can't go back on that. I've actually never told anyone that. There you go.
Thank you for
No, no,
being
it's fine.
honest.
It's the truth. It's all good. I think most people in like fans of us know, I was in and out of bad headspaces. But no, it's a shame, but it's also like it's a life lesson. And now the way I look at the world is so differently, and the way I choose my happiness. But yeah, so that's kind of what man-made sunshine means. It's this double-edged sword of like what is making it for you or the stuff that you think you are by the things you own or the labels you are.
Okay, and we come to the final track of the EP, Rosebud. It's this beautiful ballad to round off the EP. There's some really gorgeous production elements in it. And obviously it goes without saying, a beautiful vocal performance from yourself. It's a song about growth, about personal growth. I wanted to ask you, sort of as a final, to round off our conversation. Um, how do you think the experience of making this EP has helped you grow as a musician, as a person? Has it changed you in any ways?
Yeah.
And what do you think the main aspect of that was?
Oh, it's massively changed me. I didn't even intend it to or think it would. I think the main aspect of it is it's honestly it's like a simple therapy technique of when you are told to write things down in journal, which I basically was always like, oh, I don't want to do that. I obviously did that with my songs because that's the way I get it out. And then as soon as it became there in front of me, and visually I kind of see everything, the way I work, the way my brain and my body works in front of me, it made it so much easier to understand who I am, the way I go about my day, the way I think, and the negative parts of the stuff that controls my brain. I started to see it in front of me, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm not fixed. It's hard to deal with those sort of things still, but I have an understanding of myself, and it has come from writing this EP and from getting this all out so I can visually see it and understand it. And it was so beneficial, and I think that was a big reason why my band were like pushing me to do this. I think they knew I had a lot to kind of dig out and figure out, which was wonderful. So yeah, it's really been a necessity. It's really helped my life in so many ways, and it's like just being truly honest to myself. I wrote it for myself to heal myself and for something I could tune into. So I was just being honest with myself. It was like talking to myself again, talking to my inner child. Inner child work is such a common theme through this whole EP and in my life in general. And so it has really helped. And I didn't expect to release it. I got persuaded in a good sense by my band and my management and my label, and I'm glad I did. I think it's because I've been so honest. I think it's hope. I think it's connecting with people, and from what I've seen, obviously I don't like to big it up in any sense, but I think what I've seen, it seems it's helping people be really truly honest with themselves to uncover what they're covering up, and that's the whole point, really. Um, but yeah, and this song was really important. It's funny, this song originally written was I had like a massive breakup. I was with someone for like 5 years, and I was like, I should really write a song about this because it's such a core, fundamental thing in my life. And I started writing and this and that, and it felt about I was writing about me thawing out of the coldness of the end of this long relationship, and then also not wanting to give that coldness up because it was all I had left of the person. Um, and then also I realized it was a double thing where I was writing about I was giving up, I was trying to grow out of myself as well. It's a big reason why it's like I had to write this EP is to grow and to thaw out of my old cold self and to almost like mourn that naive um, person in a sense of like I didn't want to be there anymore and be that person anymore. So I thought I was writing Rosebud about my ex. Like, in terms, I was ended up. It was writing about really. It was about me thawing from myself and trying to find a new way of living and a new way of being, and which is really scary for people to do. People like our brains are so wanting to be stuck in a tough situation or a darker situation because it's comfortable, and to thaw out of that is really hard, and it takes time. But that's essentially what that song was about.
Yeah, I think we often talk about how songwriting and music making can be cathartic for the creator, and I think
Mm,
in this track and across the whole EP, really, you sort of demonstrated the power of writing songs that really sort of self-reflect and
mm,
reflect about. I think it's a really honest EP and honest sort of exercise in songwriting. So yeah,
thanks.
I think it's beautiful.
Thanks,
I
man.
think that's sort of where we're gonna leave it. The next track you'll hear is Rosebud. I want to thank Connor. It's been absolutely beautiful, an honor for me to
Thanks,
talk
man.
to you about this. I've been a massive fan of your work, and yeah, I want to thank you for the honesty and the storytelling you've done during our conversation. Thanks a lot.